반갑습니다. Okay, welcome to the entrepreneurship session, and thank you for all of you. I am Professor Jin-Soo Kim from 중앙 University, and I'm honored to be appointed as the moderator of this session. Recently, many countries have focused on entrepreneurship in order to create new jobs and enhance economic growth. Many developed countries are already making the transition from managed countries to entrepreneurial economics since 1980s. As you know, entrepreneurship has positively influenced on the various areas such as individual lifestyle and education and society and economics. For example, entrepreneurial economics much more emphasize on the startup and small business activities for promoting new job creation. Students who have undertaken the entrepreneurship classes are more likely to start their own business and also tend to earn higher income or show higher job employment. In addition, entrepreneurial society promotes innovation, creativity, risk-taking, and self-efficacy among individual lifestyles. So we can say that entrepreneurship is the power to change the world, and we need to enhance entrepreneurship for a better life. So today, in this session, we are going to learn the concept of entrepreneurship, successful practices, and discuss with the experts how the entrepreneurship education will evolve in the future. Okay, now I'm going to introduce today's guest. We invited two speakers and also two panelists. The first speaker is Professor Michael Morris from University of Florida. He's a very well-known scholar and endowed chair in entrepreneurship education area, and he published bestseller books in entrepreneurship area. And also he's running the best entrepreneurship education program in USA. The next speaker is Michele Oljan. He's president of European Chamber, and he is an entrepreneur and leader of young entrepreneurs in Europe. And also we have two discussants. First discussant is President Jake Schwartz. He is CEO and co-founder of General Assembly. And also last, okay, you can give the big applause. Okay, second discussant is President Michael Lee. Actually, he's Korean. He's the president of Young Entrepreneurs Society of Korea. I think he has very strong and wide international networks of entrepreneurship area. Okay, let's start the first presentation. Professor Michael Morris. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Would you give him big applause? Okay. Applause. Yeah.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here and to talk about a subject that is near to my heart and I think especially critical today in Korea, critical today around the world. I want to start with a quote that is my favorite quote, from a good Irishman, George Bernard Shaw. Shaw tells us that the reasonable man or woman adapts himself or herself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself or herself. Therefore, all progress depends on unreasonable men and women. Entrepreneurship is a celebration of the unreasonable. It is the man or woman who will challenge convention, who will think differently. And this is the challenge in our educational programs today, because our educational programs teach people to think reasonably, teach logic. And that's important, to be logical, to be systematic, to be reasonable. But we must put much more emphasis on the unreasonable, on challenging convention. In fact, the way I like to think of entrepreneurship is where unreasonable meets discipline, and how we combine the two to make a better world. We're in the midst of, literally, the 21st century is the entrepreneurial century. We are in the midst of an entrepreneurial revolution, a time where the world is being changed by one venture at a time. In my country alone, there are 1 million new ventures each year. They create 80% of the new jobs. The rate at which new products and services are being introduced has never been higher in history. The rate at which patents are being issued, our patent office is 2 years behind. The rate at which wealth is being created. And it's a democratic revolution. Women are starting ventures at a faster rate than society at large. Minorities are starting ventures at a faster rate. And more critically, in America, entrepreneurship has always been our secret sauce, our DNA, our difference. Not anymore. Entrepreneurship is a global revolution. And in fact, the U.S. is falling behind in terms of this global revolution. If you consider the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor that tracks levels of entrepreneurship by society, and you look at the countries with the highest GEM scores, Cameroon, Uganda, Ecuador, Chile, Thailand, this is truly a global revolution. It is a time then of more choice, more innovation, more technological change, more opportunity, more possibility. This is what the 21st century is about. In fact, my argument is that the at-risk country, the at-risk community, the at-risk city, the at-risk organization, the at-risk individual is the one not prepared for this entrepreneurial revolution. My argument is ultimately the advantage, the source of sustainable competitive advantage is entrepreneurship. When we think about entrepreneurship today, we think about it differently. Here I provide you with two of the contemporary definitions of entrepreneurship. The process of creating value through unique resource combinations to exploit opportunity. Think about that definition for a moment. What do you not see in that definition? It says nothing about starting and running a small business. It says nothing about profit. What it does say is that entrepreneurship is a process, that entrepreneurs create value, that entrepreneurs put resources together in slightly different ways, and that entrepreneurs exploit opportunity. And the most important word in that definition is process. Why? Because entrepreneurship is a manageable process. As a process, it can be broken into steps or stages. As a process, it can be managed. It can be ongoing. And importantly, it can be applied in lots of different contexts. Startup context, family business context, corporate entrepreneurship context, social entrepreneurship context. As a process, we come to understand that anybody can do it. Anybody can learn this process. Anybody can manage this process. There's an old myth, there's an old wives' tale that entrepreneurs are somehow born. They are not. They are us. And the second perspective on entrepreneurship is that the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources controlled. This is an important perspective. Entrepreneurship is not about the rich man or the person with the bigger bank account. It is about the person who can leverage resources, bootstrap, engage in guerrilla behavior, tap resources that other people don't see as resources. When we teach entrepreneurship today, and this is an important notion, think about what we are talking about, what we are really teaching. Historically, the focus has been on business basics, the mechanics of starting a venture. And so we teach a little marketing, we teach a little management, we teach a little finance, we teach a little economics. That's entrepreneurship. I don't think that's what entrepreneurship is about. I think that's what business schools teach. Entrepreneurship has emerged as a distinct discipline with a distinct content to it. And even more importantly, what we're trying to teach is not the mechanics of how to start a business. We're trying to teach a way of thinking and acting, the entrepreneurial mindset. Here, and this is a busy slide, I apologize for that, but I give you examples of what we mean when we talk about simply teaching the mechanics of how to start a venture. Managing cash flow, hiring staff, versus the content of entrepreneurship as a discipline, context for entrepreneurship, innovative business models, the lean startup. But I think much more critically, when we talk about entrepreneurship today, we need to be talking about the far right column. Entrepreneurial thinking and acting, the entrepreneurial mindset. We need to teach our young people to get better at opportunity recognition. You know, you still have people that think entrepreneurship is about taking risk. It is not. It has nothing to do with taking risks. It's about creatively mitigating risk and managing risk. And we have to teach that to our students and to entrepreneurs. It's about the ability to convey a compelling vision, to engage in guerrilla behavior, to leverage resources. These are what we call entrepreneurial competencies. The entrepreneurial mindset. So let's think about that for a second. What does it mean to think and act in entrepreneurial ways? The idea that I am an agent of change, that there's always a better way to do anything. We call it healthy dissatisfaction. That opportunity is everywhere. When you woke up this morning, there are 15 opportunities floating over your head. Do you see them? Embracing innovation and change and growth. And most importantly, the understanding that failure is important. Failure is invaluable. Entrepreneurs fail every day. Failure goes part and parcel with the entrepreneurial journey. But also a behavior, a way of acting on opportunity, going for it. What's that Nike slogan? Just do it. Persevering. Entrepreneurs simply outlast all the opposition. Leveraging resources, acting in guerrilla ways, mitigating risks, adapting. What I'm trying to say is, as a mindset, from a professional standpoint, think about this idea. Not what does it mean to start a venture, what does it mean to pursue an entrepreneurial career, which may include starting ventures, corporate entrepreneuring inside large corporations, social entrepreneurship, entrepreneuring in the public sector, family business entrepreneurship, or even more importantly, what does it mean to talk about an entrepreneurial artist, an entrepreneurial engineer? But just as important is the need to bring this entrepreneurial mindset to your personal life, to your family, to how you pay for your children's education, to your community, how you create recycling programs in your community. We've done a lot of research on entrepreneurial competencies, and we've identified these 13 competencies. To me, these are the essence of what entrepreneurship is about. Certainly, someone needs to know how to manage cash flow, how to hire employees, how to set up bookkeeping. But at the end of the day, the entrepreneurial mindset is tied to competencies like these 13. To me, we have to go further, though. It's not simply entrepreneurship as a process or entrepreneurship as opportunity recognition and exploitation. Entrepreneurship is fire in a bottle. It is about empowerment and it is about transformation. The empowerment to create your own job, your own future, your own wealth, your own sense of pride and self-worth, to create your own identity, your own facilities and operations, your own jobs for others, your own contribution to the world, to create your own ability to give back to society. Empowerment. And it's about transformation, transforming markets, transforming business practices, industries, transforming oneself and one's family, transforming one's community, and certainly transforming economies. So to me, I think this global entrepreneurial revolution is about empowering and transforming young people to create a different world, empowering and transforming our organizations to lead instead of follow, transforming our communities around the entrepreneurial spirit, transforming entire regions of countries. I also think it's not simply about the next Facebook. Far too many of the conversations about entrepreneurship center on going out, attracting $5 million, $10 million or more of venture capital money, and creating the next Twitter, creating the next whatever. What we found in our work is there are 4 different kinds of ventures that entrepreneurs create, and all 4 matter. We distinguish between what are called survival ventures, hand-to-mouth existence, a street artist. Lifestyle ventures, the large majority of small ventures, hair salons, auto repair shops. Managed growth ventures, businesses that seek to grow, to add locations, to add markets, but on a stable, managed basis. And then the so-called gazelles, or aggressive growth ventures. And on this slide, I try to characterize unique differences between them. But what I'm trying to suggest is, A, they're all forms of entrepreneurship. There are some who argue we just need to focus on these aggressive growth ventures, these gazelles creating the next Facebook. I disagree. I think society needs to meaningfully invest in all 4. You need a portfolio of types of ventures, and that these types of ventures support and feed off one another. We need to build entrepreneurial ecosystems that support survival, lifestyle, managed growth, and aggressive growth ventures. And we need to do more to connect the dots, not creating silos, but connectivity between entrepreneurship education, the investment community, NGOs or nonprofits that support entrepreneurial behavior, subject matter experts, incubators, and so forth, how we connect the dots amongst these ecosystems. A critical question many entrepreneurs ask themselves, many young people ask themselves when they're thinking about starting something is, do I have the right stuff? Do I have what it takes? My message to you is there is no right stuff. There's no checklist of things you need to reflect in yourself to be a successful entrepreneur. After 40 years of research on the psychology and the sociology of the entrepreneur, we've learned very little other than the fact that entrepreneurs are not born. We all are rich in entrepreneurial potential. Certainly we've seen some patterns. Certainly we've seen some evidence that there are different kinds of entrepreneurs, but the reality is entrepreneurs don't trend towards a central common prototype. They're widely diverse. They have lots of different characteristics and traits and cognitive styles, and at the end of the day, anybody can start a venture. My message is also that the venture experience forms the entrepreneur. One is not an entrepreneur the day she or he starts a business. One emerges as an entrepreneur. For instance, we find that entrepreneurs are more tolerant of ambiguity. Well, that's not something they start with. In an entrepreneurial venture, things are highly ambiguous. You learn to be tolerant. So that's an interesting idea that entrepreneurs don't so much, they certainly start ventures. Entrepreneurs create ventures, but more importantly, ventures create entrepreneur. The entrepreneurial experience is what forms the entrepreneur. And that's why it's so important in our educational programs to focus more on experiential learning, learning by doing, practice. Great pianists are great pianists. Certainly some modicum of talent helps, but a great pianist will tell you, I'm a great pianist because I practice 5 hours a day. We need to create forums for our young people to practice entrepreneurship a lot more, to fail more often, to be creative in more contexts and in more situations. And so I ask you this what-if question. What if every person in this room, what if everybody in this city, what if every person in this country started a venture? Think of how much further along as society we would be. My argument is that entrepreneurship is the most empowering, the most democratic, the most freedom-creating phenomenon in the history of the human race. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the very energetic presentation. Actually, Professor Morris, he took more than 16 hours flight time. Right now, in Florida, there's the midnight time, so there are big, time difference. So I just worry about his, presentation, but it was just worry, I mean, yeah, he may, give us very, energetic presentation, and also he give us new insight like empowerment, because right now I'm teaching the entrepreneurship program at the university, but we just mostly emphasize business skills and entrepreneurial skills and knowledge, but he just emphasized the entrepreneurial thinking and attitude and entrepreneurial mindset. I think that's the very more important, than basic skills, learning the basic skills and knowledge. So I think it's a very good insight for the entrepreneurs also. And also he gave us various perspectives of different types of ventures and also future issues about entrepreneurs. Okay, if you have a question, and then just write down, and then give it to the staffs, and then we can have a discussion time after the presentation. Okay, thank you very much again. We have Professor Morris. Next speaker is Michael Oljan. He's president of European Chamber, and he actually he's running the Greenie is a non-profit foundation, and he's very, successful entrepreneur. Okay, and also he likes dancing, dancing, and Korea.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you
very much.
Okay, let's give him the big applause.
Thank you for reminding me. I met this gentleman, Michael Lee, on a dancing floor in Liverpool some years ago back. I remember. I'm a former entrepreneur. I like this title, The Power to Change the World. In fact, this should be an inspiration for all of us. I will start with my story. At 10 years old, I had my small lemonade stand. At 12, I had a small illegal radio where the transmitter, self-constructed, was something this size. It was a failure because I was able to transmit maximum couple of apartments far away, maybe my mother and another listener, so it was a failure. Then I started to make software. I was selling software. After and during the university, I started one dealership of office machines. Then I moved to Central Europe from Italy. I went to Hungary, and I started working in Italy, in Hungary, in Croatia, in Romania. For many years, I ran different companies in vending machines, Then I sold my biggest one, Yopi, to Coca-Cola. They gave me enough money for the rest of my life. Then now I'm just involved in international organizations, non-profit, NGOs, and social business. I want to start with a story of one of my former employees, Steve. It was 20 years ago. We had a company with about 10 employees. Steve was working, he came to the capital of Hungary, Budapest, from a very poor city of eastern Hungary. He was starting his university, he needed some money, so he started work for my company. I was in Italy, Saturday morning, I received a call. I say, hello? And Steve would say, Michele, there's an issue here in Hungary. So what happened, Steve? He said, I fired Gabor, his boss. I say, I don't understand. What do you mean? Yeah, I took the keys of the company. I kicked him out from the company, from the door, closed the door, say, you never come here anymore. I did not understand. So, Steve, what happened? Say, I caught Gabor stealing or cheating something in the company. I still didn't know it was true or not. But I thought also somebody who has this courage, probably he has a backbone. He has some important drive. He's performing his best even when working. Today, Steve, he's an entrepreneur. He sells software around the world. I'm his customer. I think he was 19 years old when this happened. I have another story. 1 month ago, I was in Cuba. In fact, unfortunately, the monument of the failure of the socialism. Nobody speaks English there. Fortunately, I do speak Spanish. After a week going around in private homes, where, again, nobody was speaking English, I was waiting in line in the street for a small coffee in a small home-owned business bar. And a small kid came next to me and said in English, oh, sir, you know, in this bar, they have some very good juices. You can try some mango juice. And we started talking in perfect English. I was surprised. The first person, a small kid, we spoke about 10 minutes, and then I saw him leaving. He went there with his mother and brother. After my coffee, I went to his mother, and I say to her in Spanish, well, you know, your son speaks a perfect English. We had a nice conversation. She said, well, he speaks also Russian, French, and so on. Говоришь по-русски? Да. Хорошо говоришь по-русски? Конечно. Понимаю, говорю по-русски. Well, I checked his Russian, was perfect. He was 11 years old. I gave him my business card. First time I give my business card to an 11 years old guy. Can you imagine the future of this guy? Imagine who will become. So leadership and entrepreneurship has no minimum age. It's not a question about school or money. We think about entrepreneurship with a lot of misconceptions. Here are some of them. But in fact, the only important drivers are the attitude and approach of the person who wants to be an entrepreneur. You never give up. This is very important. At the end, you're going to win. By definition, if you never give up, you will be the winner. And very important, leaders and entrepreneurs shape the society, not vice versa. The rules are for the others. Leaders and entrepreneurs change the rules. I love this. quote, entrepreneurs ignore the status quo, challenge the rules, and change the game. And they act. Entrepreneurs act, always act, regardless of what is going around, regardless of the people who are saying to them, don't do that one, that's risky, too difficult, you will fail, it's impossible. Impossible, impossible, impossible. This is what always an entrepreneur hears every day almost. Do you need money? Do you need education? No, no, no. We said attitude and approach. Change your attitude if you are not an entrepreneur yet, and act. That's the most important thing that you can do. It's very nice when they say that 97% of the people who give up too soon, they finish as an employee of the 3% who never give up. And the end, they make money for the entrepreneurs. So it's so easy to be in the 3%. Don't give up. I have another story that happened to me in Hungary some years ago. George was a young guy, an intern in my company, making the graphical stuff. And one evening on Friday, about 9 or 10 o'clock, we finished finally an important graphical design for something that we have to use soon on Monday. And I say, okay, now it's ready, please print the banners and they should be ready for Monday morning. I said, Michele, it's Friday night. So what? Nobody's working, say. What do you say, dude, nobody's working? I think I'm an entrepreneur. Print them now. I say, it's impossible. I say, George, Google banner printing. He found the first one. Call this number. I say, he was laughing at me, so Michele, what are you saying? I say, dial the number. He called. On the other side, hello? Oh, sorry for disturbing you. I said, you're not disturbing. You're a customer. So he said that we need some banners for Sunday. On the other side, oh, of course, send me the files. Tomorrow morning we'll be ready. It was sometime 10 o'clock Friday night. And still he was not believing. When he hung up, he was looking at me, and was the most important teaching of his life, probably. In fact, think as an employee, you will stay an employee. Think like a leader, you will be a leader. Think as an entrepreneur, and you will be an entrepreneur. Today, he has a company. I'm his customer again. He supplies graphical design and marketing services to multinationals. We have another figure, the intrapreneur. The difference between entrepreneur and intrapreneur. Entrepreneur is the one who takes the risk, manage resources, and start exploiting market opportunities. The entrepreneur is the same, but he does the same inside a bigger organization, usually inside a multinational. The difference is that he has a lot of resources, usually very big resources to manage, but perform the same activities. Entrepreneurs, many times, become entrepreneurs later. And then we have social entrepreneurs, a new breed. Those entrepreneurs who are not driven by money, but are driven by the willingness and the desire to change the world, to make something good for the society, to solve big environmental and social problems of today's world. As I told you, I'm a former entrepreneur, but slowly becoming a social entrepreneur. In fact, some years ago, 3 years ago, we launched a non-profit initiative called Green Will, the willingness to be green, where we convince organizations and individuals around the world to make the promise to consider the environment when they take decisions. So to embed the thinking about environmental issues whenever they take decisions in all the decision-making process. It's now used by 25,000 organizations and individuals across 102 countries. And the only reason I'm putting resources in this one is in order to have a better world in the future. Social entrepreneurs are looking for ways to change the world in a sustainable way. And they are thinking about making a better world. And contrary to multinationals, which usually they look at the bottom line, which is the last line of the balance sheet, the profit. But they think about the 3 Ps: people, planet, and profit. So they perform their social role together with the environmental aspect while making profits. Of course, the profits is the driver of our economy. In capitalism, is the important base that moves the economy. But with triple bottom line, the 3 Ps, entrepreneurs becomes much more meaningful. You may read on my LinkedIn page one small article about the capitalism and forgotten stakeholders. It's something connected to this. So why social entrepreneurs are different? Because they are challenging the status quo, as we said before, not only of the market, but of everything what is around them. State, business, and the third sector also, as well. And they provide solutions where other people see only problems. But all 3, they have something in common. They innovate, they create a better world by creating wealth at the same time. Our chamber is a chamber of commerce, association of businesses, which represent not only the last P, the profit, but the other 2 Ps, people and planet, the social and environmental side. So we represent companies who have an ethical side. This is the organization I mentioned before. I also urge you to download from its web page of Greenwill the standard pledge, which is available in almost all the languages of the world, including Korean. Make your public promise that you will think about the environment when you take decisions. You will see the noble side of your work, of your studies, and it will incredibly push you to be better in all your future work. Thank you very much.
You asked President Michele Olja, okay? Right? Yeah. He asked about Greenwill's activities, okay? So, you are doing the environmental saving, improving the environmental problems, right? So, how do you running your organization, and then what is successful tips for running the non-profit organization like Greenwill's? Okay.
Very important things. You have to believe what you are doing. You have to believe in the mission. You are doing this one for the others, not for yourself. Our service for the community, for the society, is in fact only the rent that we pay for staying in this beautiful world. So we have an obligation to share our time, our resources, proportionally to what we have or what we got from the life. Green Wheel, it's a new initiative that started for our members of the European Chamber. We wanted to help the companies, members of the European Chamber, to be better players in the corporate world by helping them to start a path towards environmental sustainability. We asked them to make a public promise, a public pledge, very public, promise to take care of the environmental aspects and threats during their decision-making process. By making a very public pledge, you have to be consistent later. If not, you risk becoming a public liar. And this helped a lot of companies. Today, in 102 countries in the world, they are using this system, which is totally free. It's distributed just like the free software. Anybody, any corporation, any public entity, NGO, company, small and big, multinational, can use the framework, download the examples of our green policy. We call it the green policy. It's one paper with 7, 8 points. Very easy to understand, very simple language that you can use to show your commitment to all the people that are around you. As a father of a family, for instance, when you make this public pledge and your children know about your pledge, you don't want after 2 years they say, hey papi, didn't you promise this and that some years back? So this system, it's the opposite of environmental certification. The environmental certification has a lot of good sides. It's very structured. It has also some negative sides. It's difficult, complicated, lengthy, and very expensive. So instead of paying other companies to check if you are doing correctly, we shifted everything and turned upside down. We shifted this duty to the society. So when you make this public pledge, the society will check you, your family, your children, your wife, your husband.
Okay.
We are working with passion. We have about 20 people in our main offices. They are mostly volunteers and interns around the world from all the continents. And we are building this platform in order to distribute it for free all across the planet.
Okay. Okay.
예, 주안점이 가버먼트의 어떤 액션을 취하고 있는가, 실제 정부가 하는 정책이 상당히 중요하지 않겠습니까? 이런 사회 단체보다, 그러니까 정부의 이 단체가 어떤 액션을 취하고 있는지를 물었습니다.
네.
Yes, in our organization, there's no government role. We represent the private business, and we represent the sector, the pillar of the private enterprise. So the government is a counterpart. We work parallelly. In our initiative, we do not seek any government support, and we don't want it, in fact. We complement each other. While governments are doing the same, you probably may have heard about one of the big problems of our society today, the global warming. And all the governments together, organized by by the United Nations, will meet this December in Paris with the COP21. It's a big meeting where 50,000 people, business leaders and world leaders will meet in Paris and will try, hopefully, to take some commitment in order to improve the world by reducing emissions and reducing climate change. This is government role, for instance. We help, in this case, the initiative of United Nations. I urge all of you, for instance, to sign online the petition. You can find it on greenwheel.org, for instance. Push your own leaders, your own politicians, pressure them with your signature to take commitment. This is something that we can do together with the governments.
Okay.
I would like to address the question differently. The question of the role of government when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I think there's two sides to the role of government when it comes to entrepreneurship. One is to stay out of the way. But the other, I mean, government sets the rules of the game. And one of the biggest issues with entrepreneurship, I mean, if you listen to Jake when he's talking about his own company, he said, well, I didn't know it was going to become this many hundreds of employees. If you think about the stories that Michela told of these young people, when you think about the entrepreneurial journey, it is a journey that A, you don't control. It is a journey where random things happen that you could never predict. It is a journey where doors open because you're on the journey. If you weren't on the journey, those doors would never open. And so I think an important role of government is to, A, encourage more people to take that journey, but B, think about this word, and I know this is a big word in a Korean cultural context. Failure. To fail. How acceptable is it to fail? What is the price of failure if I try something and do not succeed in this country? And I think an important role of government is to reduce the cost of failure, is to reduce and much of that cost is perceived, it's perceptual. And how can we do things to lessen the perceived cost of failure to people who are trying to start things?
Hi, my name is Sung-min, and I have a question to Mr. Morris in Origin and Mr. Schwartz.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
if I understood correctly, Mr. Morris said that like everyone can be an entrepreneur. We are already one. And Mr. Origin said that don't give up until we become it, or until we succeed, right? But whereas Mr. Schwartz said that as a very successful entrepreneur, he said that not everyone can be a successful entrepreneur. And if I think about myself, my father is a fairly successful entrepreneur, and my brother, I believe that he could be a very, very good, successful entrepreneur. But me, I'm not really sure. So I'm wondering if I keep trying and never give up, and if I try to think like entrepreneurial, yeah, like
Okay,
Mr.
and
Morris said,
okay. Yeah.
can everyone be a successful entrepreneur, or we just support them? Yeah.
Wow, very fundamental question. Okay, very important. Okay, yeah, please, yeah, Maurice.
So I believe anybody can start a venture. I believe anybody can start a venture and make a go of it. That doesn't mean that if you take Richard Branson and Virgin, that he doesn't have unique God-given skills that allowed him to create this amazing company. But I think the basic ability to start something is within each of us. To me, the overarching issue, and I think you heard this from Michela, is you have to have passion. You have to have passion for what you're doing. You have to love it. You have to love your product and love your customer, and you have to have that passion. And I think when you combine passion and tenacity, and you get on this path, you will ultimately succeed. It's interesting how many entrepreneurs whose name you know will tell you, well, they don't talk a lot about it, but the reality is their success is rooted in their failure. Their success is rooted in the things they tried that didn't work out or weren't super successful, and it's the learning, it's the adaptation. I mean, for instance, we find that there's a lot of studies now on what are called serial entrepreneurs, people who start a second, a third, a fourth a venture. And their success rates go up dramatically, but their success rates tend to be the highest when they start a second venture that's associated with the first, that is similar kinds of services or products or markets or distribution channels or production processes or what have you. So to me, that combination of passion and tenacity, constant learning, entrepreneurs, this is another very interesting characteristic. Every amazing entrepreneur I've ever known, if you take the things that you hate the most about business, so you take the entrepreneur who hates to sell, you take the entrepreneur who hates bookkeeping, the numbers, those entrepreneurs force themselves to do the things they hate. The guy who hates to sell will insist on making 5 sales calls before he'll do anything else on a given day. And so to me, it's that immersion, it's that learning, it's that adaptation, and success will come.
So discussion we had today was very meaningful, and also we got valuable insight for developing better entrepreneurship mindset and skills. So thank you very much again, Professor Michael Morris and President Michael Oljan for your wonderful presentation. And also thank you very much, President Jake Schwartz and Michael Lee for making the discussion more meaningful and beneficial. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. We'll end the session. Thank you.